In my video on neutral on my main channel, I said that I believe Dark Souls 3 has weaker keepout than Elden Ring, or turn and burn as some call it. But one commenter was curious as to why I believe that, as to them it seems like it would actually be stronger in Dark Souls 3. Specifically, they pointed out how the stagger of neutral, or standing attacks, were stronger in that game relative to running attacks, while in Elden Ring, there's usually no difference. Let me try explaining it from the top down. Keepout is worse in Dark Souls 3 because it's just worse if you miss it. In Elden Ring, if you whiff an attack, the opponent's whiff punish on most setups will usually only guarantee them the one hit, and might even put them in disadvantage, or might not even stun because of poise. Meanwhile, in Dark Souls 3, nearly every weapon has a 2-hit combo through its standing light attacks, which is due to its very advantageous stun on the first attack. On many setups, they could roll catch you to death off of one whiff if they kept reading when you're going to roll, unlike Elden Ring, where mix-up chains are far more limited. You can also just keep swinging and keep priority indefinitely, which is rarely the case in Elden Ring. But doesn't strong standing attacks make keepout stronger as well? Somewhat, but not nearly as much. Standing attacks don't have the same range as running attacks, so it's way more likely to whiff. And when you do whiff, you put yourself in a pretty bad position, because you just used your first R1, and you no longer have it available, and are instead limited to the lower range, lower stagger attack that is your follow-up R1. So the reward you get for interrupting their roll catch is way lower than the reward they could get from either whiff punishing you immediately or roll catching you. Because of the range running attacks have, it's a lot easier to not whiff them compared to standing attacks, which makes them safe for keepout. But because they don't have the kind of stagger standing attacks have, they don't give much reward, and usually you just want to return to neutral after hitting one. Also, there's something very vital to the definition of these neutral options. After neutral is broken, there's a lot of stuff that can happen before the duel returns to neutral. A lot of those options could be described as keepout, pressure, or whiff punishing. But when I say something like keepout is stronger in Elden Ring, I mean that compared to other options for breaking neutral, the risk reward of keepout is better. So everything that can be included after neutral is broken, like say a roll catch chain, is included in the value of that play. Like if we go back to what I said about whiff punishing in DS3, looking for a whiff punish is very rewarding because by spacing yourself for your opponent's whiff, you can pressure them extremely strongly in post-neutral or advantage, which is very distinct from pressure in neutral where there is no advantage. Keepout is very strong in Elden Ring because for the most part, that can't happen. Your opponent can't get extremely strong chains on you just because you whiffed once. It's strong simply off of the fact that what you can get for spacing for whiff punishes is so little. That's the exact opposite situation to DS3's where keepout is weaker because spacing for whiff punishing is stronger. Remember that in neutral, pressure is what beats whiff punishing, but since keepout is still okay in that game against pressure, you can't really say pressure is that strong in DS3, at least in neutral. And since keepout beats pressure, keepout being strong in ER means that pressure is not very strong in that game, albeit still necessary in some amount if you want to win. You know, if you watch duels from either Dark Souls 3 or Elden Ring, it's very rare to see a case where someone successfully pressures their opponent from neutral, as in where a player chases their opponent down with attacks without the opponent committing to an attack or roll first. If you look at any case of pressure, you can scrub back in the video and find that it probably started with someone swinging first. So does pressure in neutral not even matter? Well, no, it definitely does, but more like the threat of it. If you look at duels where there's a large skill gap, you will likely see pressure from neutral, but only because the less experienced player doesn't know how to fight back. With more experienced players, the threat is still there, it's just answered by keepout before they can get the chance to commit to it with an attack. So almost always, neutral is broken by someone doing keepout, and that is answered either by a defensive roll or by a whiff punish, assuming the opponent has the spacing. But if you aren't willing to at least posture as if you're going to chase them down, then your opponent has no real reason to keep out. It's also worth noting that corners are ultimately what makes pressure real. Your options on defense are far more limited when your back's to a wall or corner, and generally the offense of your opponent gets stronger and hits where it normally couldn't. This is especially important in Dark Souls 3 where positional advantage is much more significant. But in either case, reasonable boundaries are needed, otherwise players can indefinitely hold the duel hostage by just running away. This is your reminder to check out better multiplayer. So I wouldn't be able to say if either game is necessarily more or less passive than the other. In Elden Ring we have keepouts being thrown out basically 24/7, but it still feels kind of passive because all you're trying to do is dissuade the opponent from chasing you down. In Dark Souls 3, we literally have gifs of players doing nothing but spacing for who knows how long. Some might consider Dark Souls 3 less passive over the fact that post-neutral pressure, usually right after hitting Whiff Punish, is so strong, but remember that it's not the same thing as pressure and neutral. It certainly does feel good, though, how you can just kill Hyper Armor user in Dark Souls 3 and don't have to poke and dance around them like a little mosquito. But yeah, what I'm definitely sure of is that Dark Souls 3 is more of a whiff punishing game and Elden Ring is more of a keep out game. I hope this makes things a bit clearer for you guys. Let me know if you have any other questions, and also I wonder what kind of neutral you guys prefer. Also, do you think the neutral triangle can be applied to Dark Souls 1, 2, maybe even Bloodborne? Certainly not very cleanly, as those three are very different games. But if anybody is knowledgeable in those games' PvP, I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's all for this video though, so just remember to subscribe and stuff. Yeah, bye-bye.